again, folks. Still a beautiful morning from Castle Rock State Park. I'm Alex. Quick little wired COVID-19 blurb. If you are wondering if the park is open right now, sadly we are not. Yesterday that most of the had been closed for the last week, hard closures, trails, everything closed. Most of those have reopened, at least the trails for local foot and bike traffic, where they allow bikes, so we're strongly encouraging that people are not getting in the car, driving off to these parks, that you are staying as local as possible, if you can at all walk or bike to local areas to get in your exercise, get your fresh air in, that you are doing that. Unfortunately, we were one of the exceptions. We are still going to be closed. I don't have a date on when that's going to end. I apologize. Big Basin State, another one staying closed for now, so I do apologize. I know that is a bummer. But if you're looking for up to the minute updates, how the state parks and specific parks are changing to to their policies to kind of as the situation evolves, I would recommend a couple different things. I would recommend checking out individual parks' social media platforms. I know on Facebook and Instagram here at the park, we've been trying to keep all the updates going. But I would also recommend our official statewide state parks website. We've got a whole page dedicated to all the different updates, policies, closures, got a list of closures on there. So I would highly recommend that. That is www.parks.ca for California, .gov.gov/flatten the curve, all one word. And that www.parks.ca.parks. And that's where to find all the information. And so that way I don't have to spend this about it, because I know there's quite a bit. I'm sure you folks mostly know the drill by now. So I do apologize, but hopefully give you a little taste of the park to enjoy remotely from home. So, once again, my name is Alex. I work here in Santa Cruz District for State Parks, working for about 5 years here with Parks now. I'm what is called an interpreter. So whenever I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, well, what language do you speak?" And unfortunately, I'm not great at any human language, but I'm decent at I speak redwood and banana slug and manzanita, is what I like to say. I take the natural and cultural history of the park and break it down for the public in interesting and absorbable ways that's relevant to you. Oh, I should probably take these shades off. I just realized, actually. I know I look super cool in them, but us interpreters try to be nice and personal and make eye contact as much as possible, or eye to camera contact, I guess. Anyway, so thanks for joining us. We are here at Castle Rock State Park right now in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California. So if you want to, whip out your Google map, check that out where we are. We are the Castle Rock State Park in Los Gatos, California. If you just type in Castle Rock, you're going to find all kinds of stuff around the world, because there's lots of, castle-shaped rocks out there. But we are the Castle Rock State Park in California, Los Gatos, California. We're not really in Los Gatos. That's just the nearest town down the mountain. But what's going to pop up if you search for our address. So check us out there. Now, this is our general public live stream. So if at any point you have any comments or questions to put in the comment section, I ask that you do, remember that, children could be watching this. But if you have a question for me, please put it in there. There's a little bit of a delay, so I might not even see it for 10 or 15 seconds, but I will get to it when I can. So I'm seeing a little bit of action. Hi, Rosemary. Hi, how's it going? And so just got any questions, put them in there, and I'll get to them eventually. And if I don't see them on the video, I'll check the comments a little bit later and hopefully be able to answer. So feel free to put that in here. I think I should give you a little bit of perspective where I'm standing right here in the mountains. Castle Rock State Park is called the gateway to the Santa Cruz Mountains, being right between kind of Silicon Valley Bay area and Santa Cruz and the Monterey Bay area. Let me give you a little bit of perspective where I'm at right now. I'm actually on the side of the ridge here. Okay, and so not on the top. If you can see, it goes up a little bit further, up to the top of the ridge. But we've got beautiful. Oh, look! Ooh, there's our friend the turkey vulture, I believe, again. Castle Rock, great place to watch TV. My favorite show, Wings. Hey-o. Okay, all right, probably. Not all of you watched that classic television show from the 90s. So, okay, here we go. So, got the ridge lines coming down. So, I'm actually standing on a sandstone Tafoni rock outcropping here. Is that Hawkeye? What up, dude? Okay, how's it going? Nice. Seeing a lot of friends and family members here. There we go. Okay, that's a much better view. So you can see here the Santa Cruz Mountains out around me. That way, on clearest days, you can see the ocean and even across the bay to the city of Monterey. And yeah, so I'm just right in the right now. Castle Rock, portal to the Santa Cruz Mountains here. Beautiful. So we are seeing, actually, we are in my lazy sweep of the iPad here. We are seeing several different ecosystems represented. I'm going to try to take you through those, talk a little about them. So I'm sure a lot of you have been dealing with a lot of changes in your life, especially right now. Hopefully a lot of these, are temporary. A lot of big ones. Now at Castle Rock, change is just an everyday reality. And I'm not just talking about closures and stuff. I'm talking about just life here in Castle Rock. For the wildlife, the plants, and the animals. Here is connected in a very real way. Different ecosystem. If you don't know what an ecosystem is, probably most of you do, but if you don't know what an ecosystem, it's a particular area, okay, with different wildlife, plants, animals, or and their physical environment. And in those ecosystems, like I said, all of the wildlife, plants, animals, what have you, are connected. And they're connected through what natural scientists might call nutrient cycles, energy flows. You've probably heard of them more colloquial as the food chain, or the food cycle. Do. That mountain lion is going to or drop it out in, us naturalist types, we like to use the words scat or droppings to talk about wild animal. So that mountain lion is going to drop out what's left of that deer in its scat. That scat might get broken down by a whole bunch of things. Let's say a banana slug breaks down that scat. They're decomposers, right? Gets the energy from that for itself, breaks down the rest so it can decompose into the soil. Soil, of course, the dirt, that your plants, including grasses. And then what eats grass? Deer. Then you've got this perfect circle: deer, mountain lion, poop, banana slug, soil, grass, deer again. It just makes a perfect little circle. Well, No, actually, it doesn't make a perfect circle. It can make a perfect circle right there. But also, that food, that energy, can go in all kinds of different directions. Mountain lion scat again, and instead of banana slug, it could be broken down by different things, different bacteria, fungus, maybe, beetles. Let's say a beetle. That beetle could, take some of that scat, eat it, use it for energy, and it might go and then get eaten by, say, a acorn woodpecker. That acorn woodpecker might get in turn eaten by a bobcat, or it might lay some eggs and hatch a bunch of new acorn woodpeckers that might live for years eating beetles, or but eventually will die, will go back, somehow decompose into the soil. So you've got, you have the potential for a perfect circle, but in reality, you see it going in a lot of different simultaneous directions. So that's why we like to refer to it these days in educational opportunities as the food web. You've got a whole web, like a spider's web, many different interconnections throughout, in many different directions. So that's why you'll often that term, the food web, rather than the food chain, which kind of implies that it's going in one direction only. So all life in an ecosystem, in a particular area, in the particular physical environment, is going to be connected. That's what makes an ecosystem. Now, what makes ecosystems distinct, makes them different? How can you tell? Is a number of factors. The most basic of which is the climatic conditions, the weather, right? How much sun, water, wind, that kind of thing. Find it that much. If you were to get a globe and highlight all the spaces that where you find environments, you're not going to have a lot of highlighted space. You can find chaparral, of course, in the west of the United States. Certainly, you can find chaparral in just the southernmost part, the Cape Town area of South Africa, the western tip of Australia. You can find some chaparral. Excuse me, and then on certain parts of the along the Mediterranean. So you notice that all of those are coastal, very coastal areas, right by the ocean or the sea. And so that is very important for creating chaparral. You need, with chaparral, you do get, they tend to be associated with drier, hot areas, but you'll notice I'm not standing in the middle of a desert. In the winter, we get plenty of rain. And in fact, the mountains here, the reason why we have so much redwood forest is because we get over 60 inches of rain on average a year. And so it is actually technically a rainforest, a temperate rainforest, not a tropical rainforest, but a rainforest. So we do get lots of rain, but you're really only going to find that in the winter months. And then the chaparral has such high drainage soil that it's really dry. It doesn't keep a lot of that. You're not going to find streams and creeks and things in summer. So the plants and animals that are that live here, that make their homes here, have to be adapted to those warmer climes, drier areas. I'm seeing a little, seeing some comments here. Ben, hey Ben, how's it going, man? I didn't know chaparral was so rare. Oh, so I guess you are still learning. Appreciate it, Ben, a former co-camp counselor with me back in the day. Seen a lot of friends. Mike, I see Mike, you're watching, at least you were. That's awesome. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Much appreciated. Makes it fun for me too. Yes, Ben. Yes, the chaparral is very rare, only found in a few different places. And because it really takes, like I said, very kind of a delicate balance. You need water sometimes. In the winter, regular water, or else these plants, wouldn't be able to survive. It does get, to not get crazy hot. It can definitely get over 100 degrees, but I've not seen it jump into temperatures up here before, so it does get quite hot in the summer, but you do need the ocean there, keeping it relatively temperate. So we're here in the chaparral. So let me give you a little bit of the plants you might find here. I haven't seen a lot of animals here, so I can certainly talk about them, but I can show you some of the plants here, like the manzanita. Now, if you were watching our video a couple weeks ago about the madrone trees, and if you didn't, you can check it out on our Facebook page on our video. It's called Redder Than the Redwoods, and we have right here sort of the cousin, where the madrone is a tree, the manzanita very closely related, lots of similarities, but it is essentially shrub version. I actually have been, in Henry Cowell a couple years ago in some of the Sandhills areas, and we saw, or at least I was told by a bigger expert than me, that the trees we were seeing were actually very large manzanita. So they apparently, but for the most part, for relative amateurs like me, the version is the manzanita, the tree version is the madrone. Now, we're seeing probably some similarities and some definite differences. Similarities, of course. Let's see if I can get a good shot of here. The branches, you'll notice, are covered in red paper kind of skin as much of our madrone trees. The bark also peels off dramatically like that. But then definitely some differences. You can tell the flowers right now, in fact, are attracting some bees. Let's see if we can buzzing around. Nope, they don't like it so much. But we definitely got a lot of bees coming here. So you can see the flowers. You also, one of the biggest differences, the leaves here. So the madrone tree has those glossy leaves that the water just kind of drips right off of down to the roots, which is where it wants it anyway. Now in the chaparral, these smaller leaves are a lot more common, and we got some chemise over here as well. Tiny little leaves on that one. When you have lots of little leaves rather than fewer, you get lots of little nooks and crannies the water can hide in, sheltered from the sun, not evaporate so quickly. So even in the winter when you are getting water up here, that's dispersed with, sunny days. And up here on the ridge, all day direct sunlight, you can lose all that water really quickly. So you need lots of little places for that water to hide in. Another similarity is that both the manzanita and madrone have berries, though they berry at different times, and neither of them are berrying right now. The manzanita berry a little later in the summer, starting around July, August. But the berries are very different. Whereas the madrone tree gets like a traditional berry kind of juice, seeds and stuff. The manzanita dry. It's like a pulpy dust that you can grind up into a powdery drink. It's kind of like a lemonade or like a lemon water. Very tasty, high vitamin C content. So it's definitely something that would have been used by the native peoples. Oh, and I'm realizing, my apologies, introduction, and I do want to do a little land acknowledgement. We are actually on Ohlone land right now, is the larger tribal group that was around here with multiple different language groups in here. And this is actually along essentially kind of a trading and migration route for different tribes to connect and trade with each other. But we are in the ancestral land of the Achistaka people, closest tribe to make its land here and to use this land. Typically you find those villages and things closer to the ocean, on the coast, rivers, valleys, that kind of thing. I meant to do that at the top when I was telling us where we were. Okay, so we're in the chaparral here, and we just took a look at the plants. Some of the animals you might expect to find here. Now, they are, you know, they help define kind of what the ecosystem is, but they are not necessarily looking at that ecosystem and like looking at the and you know, stopping themselves, you know, group necessarily. For instance, the black-tailed deer we have up here, you know, can get around to all these different ecosystems, but you can certainly see them up here, although you're less likely to see them because you're more likely to see some of these sandstone caves. Great for mountain lion dens. So that's not something I would necessarily worry about if you're interested in coming visiting in the future, but it is certainly something to know and prepare about. Other animals you might find, other predators like coyotes, certainly, you know, reptiles of the sunny rocks here, so alligator lizard, snakes of all kind, and up here the only place I would expect to possibly find, say, a rattlesnake. We don't. That's really the only venomous snake we have here, native to the area. So you know, you don't really have to worry about that too much. The rest mostly, you know, garter snakes and the like. But we do have rattlesnakes, and this is where they would. So again, grew up hiking these trails, never seen one. Doesn't mean you won't. So if you're planning in the future a trip here to Castle Rock, not something to worry about, but certainly something to prepare for and be. And then other animals up here. And although I don't want to go too much into the birds, I want to save that video because we do get a ton of birds around here. But we heard like a wren tit earlier, and I showed you a quick clip of a turkey vulture, which six distinct and in the Santa Cruz Mountains we have that seventh just a little bit. First I'm going to see if I can find here for you all the others, and I think I can do almost all of them from this vantage point. So let me turn the camera once more. So real quick, first ecosystem we've been talking about, chaparral. You'll notice in general the shrubs dominate. Got a lot of manzanita, like I mentioned. We got chamise. We have toyon here, which is holly. In fact, that's where LA gets its Hollywood nickname, is from the holly or toyon found in the hills. Here in my immediate vicinity, you got stone going on as well. Now, what I have to show you is I cannot find from this vantage point any ridge top grassland. So if you the ridge is over here, this is actually go into that in a little bit. But if you were to imagine that all the trees and shrubs and everything were grasses, lots of wildflowers. You know, you got like purple needle grass, Mariposa lilies, that kind of thing. At the top of these ridges, that constitutes ecosystem we refer to as the ridgetop grasslands. I know, right? It's self-explanatory. I think it's pretty good. Now, what we are actually looking at right here below us is mixed oak woodland. So if you'll notice, a lot of, in this spot right here, we have a patch of mostly the same trees. oaks. And they might look a little deadish right now, but they are one of the oaks we have that are deciduous. Most oaks are deciduous. We have a lot of oaks that are evergreen here in Anchorage Mountains. Some of our live and valley oaks. But the black oaks, deciduous, so they've changed color, dropped a lot of their leaves, and they're pretty rare. The black oak is native to the area here, but really this is the only significant stand that we have, or at least that I know of. It's possible there's some black oaks in some of the private property areas or logging areas, but imagine not as good of a stand as this one. So, and you can see a little bit below there is the Saratoga Gap Trail, and so you can actually, so our trails go right through some of this oak. If you've ever been to Goat Rock, best way to get this beautiful view that I'm showing here, there's a big old black oak right next to, so you can aid if you're doing climbing or just hanging out on the rock for the view. This is beautiful. Black oak, apparently the acorns really for food, as a food source. The the Ohlone people, the Atchistaka people would harvest different acorns, and you can harvest basically any acorn. So we got some live oak, valley oak, canyon oak, but apparently the black oak up here and the tan oak are the best acorns. They require the least leaching. The other ones you really have to soak in water for a long time to get the tannic acid out, but the black oak and the tan oak apparently not as much. So it's really good. So if you got a good black oak harvest, that was going to be a good year. And so in the mixed woodland, again, self-explanatory. You have a mix of trees, but dominated by those oaks, and in this case, that black oak. Now, if we go a little bit further down the hill, we're seeing a little bit more of the we're getting into the mixed hardwood forest, mixed evergreen forest. That's where madrones, you start to see more of the madrones. That's where you might find some redwoods creeping in. All those, up the hill here, it's not the ideal spot for them, and they prefer the redwood forest proper, where they can kind of outcompete some of the other trees. But you're definitely starting to get increase in wildlife. Since there's shade, there's more habitat, more shelter, a chance for water. Word up, right? So you tend to get, we refer to that area as Restaurant Row. Just lots of stuff, lots of seeds and bugs to eat, and of course that brings all kinds of stuff, squirrels and things, and then the things that hunt those, other kinds of snakes and bobcats, coyotes come down off from the chaparral down there. But still relatively close to these chaparral areas. Then if you continue down into this sea of green you see before me, that gets into proper redwood forest. So the redwoods like to really kind of outcompete, share resources between them, hog the shade, hog the soil. So you tend to see biodiversity in terms of like different kinds of species and things, especially since before I said, we're talking about a rainforest, a temperate rainforest. You see nearly as many different kinds of plants and animals as you would in a tropical rainforest, but it's still teeming with life. And so you tend to get, a lot more things like, squirrels and birds live in the canopies of these trees. You get the mule deer prefer, the black-tailed deer prefer to be a little further away. The mountain lions, their main prey. They like to hang out, especially down in the parks, because they know that we're gonna protect them, not let anybody hunt them. So we get a lot of those. So this is where you get that's redwood forest, where you can really get woods up here. But it's not ideal, not enough water, too dry of soil, that kind of thing. So while we might get some really small ones up here in the mixed evergreen forest, down there is where we can get the real big, it's the old growths, 200, 300 footers. Now, if you kind of follow that general impression of the to the bay, to the Monterey Bay out in Santa Cruz, that general impression is essentially the San Lorenzo River. So right along the river, you get riparian environment is what it's referred to. And riparian's fancy word is, river, along the river, riverside. So when you have the river running, actually, interestingly, they don't want to be right in the water. They don't want to be right along the creek. They prefer what's referred to as alluvial floodplains, which means they like areas near-ish to creeks that will flood and will themselves be underwater, but not every year, not every winter. Every 5 to 10 years or so is preferable. That's what redwoods really love. So right along the river, you tend to see more plants like alder, willow, sycamore, that kind of thing. And of course, animals, you tend to see animals that are a little more aquatic, amphibious itself. You find salmon, crayfish, that kind of thing. Out in the water, you can find salamanders, newts, frogs, that kind of thing. It's actually a system that kind of runs through the larger redwood forest ecosystem. So definitely, Big Basin, Henry Cowell redwoods have some great examples of redwood forest right next to riparian ecosystem. Speaking of, so there's one other ecosystem I'm gonna touch on real quick today is the sandhills. Incredibly rare. Why we call it, Santa Cruz Mountain sandhills. It's specific to this area, so you can't find in these mountains. The species. Oh, hey Rose. Oh, hey Richard. How's it going? And so you can find these very specific species that you wouldn't find Santa Cruz wallflower, the grasshopper, the mountain hermit, Santa Cruz mountain kangaroo rat. Animals anywhere else in the entire world except in very specific little sandhill pockets of Santa Cruz mountains. Is the best way to go explore it. They've got to through some of those parts, and so if you're trying to get out sandhills, highly recommend. A bit different from the chaparral. We talked about. I showed you a little bit. I can show you a little some of the soil, sandy, high drainage, but not. And if you those areas, it is like you're in miles from. Interesting. And so that. Great, Ben, homework, much appreciated. Okay, so there is one particular plant book. I'm remembering what it is. It's colloquially as Pink Bible. As a, it's got a pink and it's got a picture of the red. looks like kind